Anyone fascinated by the natural world has probably wondered why some animals have such strange-looking sense organs. The elephant with its huge ears, the antennae of a butterfly, which up close look like feathers, the snake with its split tongue. And what about less obvious enhancements, like the sensory cells on a crocodile's skin? Surely these evolutionary traits aren't just for decoration. In fact, the size, shape, and location of these animal sense organs is all for a purpose. And just like us, animals rely on their senses to communicate with each other, find their way around, stay safe, and most importantly, to find food. When you see how superior some animal senses are compared to those of humans, you might wonder how we ever managed to stay on top of the food chain. Animal super senses. You won't believe what's possible. On this episode of Animal Super Senses, we get in touch with the feelings of wild animals. Really in touch. Because animals, just like humans, rely heavily on their sense of touch every day in every way. There may be a fine line between pleasure and pain, but not knowing the difference between the two can be absolutely fatal. The sense of touch does more than tell us about that ant biting into our skin, or helps a grizzly bear to keep hold of a slippery salmon when he is hungry. Touch alerts animals to pressure, heat, cold, wind, and yes, pain. Helping them to catch food, manipulate objects in their paws, but also to navigate and communicate. Touch receptors, which include body hair, inform the brain about tactile sensations. These receptors fall into two main categories: mechanoreceptors, which detect movement, and thermoreceptors, which respond to temperature. On the vast plains of the African savanna, there is an animal not famed for its sensitivity, when perhaps it should be. After all, we are talking about the largest living land mammal, one that eats a minimum of 200 pounds per day and whose skin is their own body armor. But don't be fooled by their size, their seemingly thick skin, or prodigious appetites. African elephants and their Indian relatives are remarkably sensitive creatures. For one thing, they are highly intelligent animals, which display complex social behaviors, such as courtship, communal care, vocal communication, and play. But they are also sensitive in the most literal and most scientific use of the word. To begin with, that thick skin up to 1.5 inches thick is in fact highly tuned to the slightest touch. And no part of the elephant's body is more tactile than its trunk. Used primarily to locate and manipulate food, elephants are herbivores, and an elephant's trunk is in constant use. They are remarkable for their strength as well as sensitivity, able to pick up objects in excess of 500 pounds in weight. But their trunks are also so responsive to touch that they are capable of perceiving pressure differences as low as 0.01 inch in depth. The small sensory hairs on the tip of the trunk are in part responsible for the sensitivity. Called Pacinian corpuscles, these cells pick up on the tiniest vibrations. It's interesting to note that Pacinian corpuscles show up elsewhere in nature, on human fingertips, for example. On the elephant's trunk, they are constantly in use, as the trunk plays a part not just in foraging for food, but in that rich social life. The trunk can be used to caress, nudge, or nudge other members of the herd, not least during mating season. Well, as the old saying goes, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Mutual grooming is an important and practical way for social animals not only to look after one another, but also to form bonds. There can be few bonds in the wild stronger than a mother kangaroo and her baby Joey. While still the tiniest infant, it climbs from its mother's abdomen to her pouch and stays there for over 6 months. Kangaroos then are used to intimacy from the get-go. Fun fact, a group of kangaroos is called a mob. To be accepted into the mob, an outsider will be subject to a sniffing, but also a rubbing of noses. Mutual grooming and touching may then proceed, uninhibited. But rub a kangaroo the wrong way and it could come to blows. Ritualized fighting, or as it looks to us, boxing, is a part of this marsupial's tactile toolkit. It's that moment when a kanga's sense of touch becomes a sense of ow. Tens of thousands of miles away from the Australian outback, on the Serengeti National Park, another very distinctive mammal uses touch to strengthen bonds between family and herd. Zebras live in herds as many as 1,000 strong, but their first loyalty is always to the family group, which will generally number between 5 and 20 animals. They will maintain these bonds over many years. The bonds are strong. For example, If an individual gets lost or has to slow down due to age or injury, the rest of the zebras will go on the lookout for their lost companion or adjust their traveling pace in response. Something that strengthens those bonds are mutual groomings, where zebras line up alongside each other, neck and neck and cheek to cheek as it were, and nibble the hair on each other's neck and back. That actually looks like fun.